Hi, I just found your blog, the Daily Knell, and read some articles. Interesting stuff.
Thanks.
But I don't get it. Why do you say that Ron Paul and the Libertarian movement are controlled by the elites when they are against central banking and fiat money?
Austrians always talk about central bank printing. But did you know that 97% of the money's supply is created by commercial banks, not by central banks?
Really?
Yes, check it out.
Still, Ron Paul is right to talk about using precious metals as a basis for a sound currency.
Well, who do you think owns most of the gold?
I guess the central banks. They have thousands of tons in their vaults.
Correct.
Probably some of these elite money power families as well.
That's right. Then why would these people be afraid of going back to a gold-based currency?
Well, they cannot create money so easily if it is based on a commodity.
True. But if we are talking about a gold standard, or a gold-backed currency, then they can print a lot of paper notes, a lot more than is actually backed by metal. After all, this is why goldsmiths created gold receipts in the first place. The gold stays in the vaults, and the paper circulates. Think about it. Also, the one thing that both Austrians and mainstream economists have in common is that they both think that it is legitimate for banks to collect interest on loans.
Well, what's wrong with that? Banks are lending their own capital. They are taking a risk and should be compensated.
In our current system, loans are created out of thin air the minute the borrower agrees to the contract. Most credit is created by commercial banks that way.
Well, duh. That's why Austrians want us to go back to sound money, so that these banksters can't create it from nothing like they are doing now.
Okay, but what is the difference when you borrow money under a gold standard? The bank can still print more paper than is backed by their actual gold reserves. It's true that maybe they would have to be more careful if they cannot be bailed out by a central bank. But do you really think it is better that the money's supply is under the control of the elites who hoard most of the gold, or that gold miners can influence the money's supply so much?
Well, everybody is free to go and start digging their gold.
Are you sure that this is the best way to keep everyone busy? Maybe increasing the quantity of gold available overground should not be the grand goal of humanity. Let's forget about the Anunnaki fantasies.
What are you talking about? Anyway, many Austrians want a free market for currencies. They are not forcing us to use gold.
The problem with the Austrians' free market is that what they are really proposing is the law of the jungle. Who do you think will win in their free market? It's obvious that the money power elites have a huge advantage. They will just prevail over everyone else with their gold-backed currency, and you will end up having to dig gold to reimburse your interest charges.
No one has to borrow money.
Actually, money is issued as interest-bearing debt-based currency and must first be borrowed into existence. To pay the interest costs, the borrower must raise his prices. Therefore, the interest costs are indirectly transferred to the entire society.
You are describing the current fiat money system. That's not what Austrians and libertarians propose. Also, some Austrians are against fractional reserve banking.
Well, the gold-backed currency of the Austrians will still carry interest, right? And it still must be borrowed into existence, right?
I'm not sure. They don't really talk a lot about how their private currencies are issued. But I guess you are right.
Then the bankers will end up owning everything in the long run, or having everyone working for them. It does not matter if we are talking about paper, gold, fiat money issued by the government, or a gold-backed currency issued by private banks. Even under a full reserve banking system, the bankers would end up owning everything in the long run, although it would take longer.
So you are saying that the bankers always win in the end?
As long as the currency must be borrowed into existence with interest charges, yes.
So they don't care whether it's gold or paper?
It doesn't matter that much to them. Even under the gold standard, credit created by commercial banks was the most important form of money.
Interesting. I didn't know that. How about central banking versus private banks?
That's a good question. See, libertarians and Austrians are against big government. The bankers don't like that government still has the power to create money. They would prefer to keep it all for themselves. Also, we know that Western-style democracy is a sham, but still a government is in theory accountable to its citizens. But private banks, not so much.
I still don't get it. You don't see Ron Paul or libertarianism in the mainstream a lot. If the elites wanted to promote their ideas, we should see them a lot more, no?
The thing is, the elites always work both sides. They know that there will always be people who will see through the system, so they try to make sure that they catch them before they can escape the matrix. That's why there is always a mainstream side and an alternative side. See, I'm not just talking about the two-party system. They also control the gold versus paper dialectic. They win anyway as long as we have to borrow our money from them and we have to pay interest on it. Even more, they have been on top of the libertarian versus communist dialectic for centuries. They even try to control the government versus no government dialectic.
You want to tell me that Ludwig von Mises worked for the elites? Murray Rothbard? Ron Paul? Come on.
Actually, that's true. Mises was founded by the Rockefeller and indirectly by Bernard Baruch, an agent of the Rothschild. Rothbard was sponsored by the Volcker Fund, and the Rockefeller were behind that outlet as well. Ron Paul is backed by Peter Thiel, a top Bilderberger. You can't get a lot more elite than that. Check it out. It's all online, on the Daily Knell and elsewhere. Oh, and did you know that most of the libertarian media outlets are controlled by one company?
No. Which company?
It's a big financial conglomerate called Agora. They are behind most of the free market websites and hard money newsletters you see nowadays. By the way, Agora was founded by Lord William Rees-Mogg and James Dale Davidson. Did you know that Rees-Mogg was also on the governing council of the BBC for a long time?
The BBC? You mean that the exact same people who are controlling the mainstream media are also controlling the libertarian movement?
Correct.
That's crazy. Well, maybe you are onto something after all. When I first read your articles, I thought that you were just another bunch of statists trying to promote fiat money and central banks. Now, I see that it is more complex than that.
Exactly. We are exposing the libertarian propaganda and their connections to money power, but that does not mean that we are in favor of big government, or central banks, or fiat money. We just want people to start thinking for themselves. We want to help them escape the elite dialectic.
Wow, my head is spinning. That's a lot to think about.
Take your time.
Well, thanks for the conversation. I think I might visit your blog again. I'm still not sure I agree with you, but it's good to hear a different viewpoint.
You're welcome.